Morning, everyone. Mr. Lewis here again, ready to go through section 5 of Unit 2 today. This is the last section that deals with elasticity. So I'm going to try to be quick about it. Let's do it. Okay, so section 2.5 is called Other Elasticities. We've already done price elasticity of demand. We've already done price elasticity of supply. If you have not viewed those two videos, please go back and do that. They're in the notes. They're in the agendas from those days. So go back and check on Tuesday and Wednesday's agendas and Buzz, and they're there. So today we're going to look at other elasticities. The two other types of elasticity are called income elasticity of demand and cross-price elasticity of demand. So let's just look at income first. Income elasticity of demand measures the demand change as a product of income change. So as our income goes up or down, how much more or less of a good do we consume or do we demand? So that's what income elasticity is. It's just based on income instead of price change. We're putting in income change. And again, it helps us determine whether goods are normal or inferior. Cross-price elasticity of demand is comparing across two products. So we measure the demand change of one good as a product of the price change of another good. And this helps us as economists determine whether goods are substitutes or complements. And you're going to see how it helps us determine that. So today we're dealing with normal, inferior, substitute, complement. We've talked about these four types of goods before. So income elasticity of demand looks like this. It's the percent change in QD over the percent change in income. Not that much different than what we've seen already compared to elasticity of demand and elasticity of supply. The only difference here is that we're dealing with two different types of goods. It could be a normal good or it could be an inferior good. Now you already know, hopefully, that a normal good, as income increases, our demand also increases. It's normal behavior. With an inferior good, as income increases, demand decreases. It's like we're saying, oh, we got money now. We don't need to buy that thing anymore because it's inferior. Okay, we can get the good thing in our mind, whatever that might be. But really, here's what it comes down to. Over here, it says if income elasticity is positive, it's a normal good. If income elasticity is negative, it's an inferior good. And those will both always be true 100% of the time with 100% certainty. Here's why. Think about our relationship in this fraction. If the percent change in income is positive, but the percent change in quantity demanded is negative, that means that as our income went up, we bought less of something. That would suggest it's an inferior good. So, try one of these on your own. Okay, I want you to pause this video right now and read the question and see if you can work through it. I'm going to go ahead and do this now, though, because I don't want to wait. So you can pause the video and continue when you're ready. But it says when minimum wage increases from $8 to $10, the demand for taxi rides increases by 20%. What is income elasticity of demand for taxis, and is the good normal or inferior? So they're already giving you the percent change in income here, but here's how it's set up. E sub I is equal to percent change in QD, quantity demanded, divided by percent change in income. So we've got 20% on top. It already gave us the percent change in the demand for taxi rides. And in the denominator, we've got 2 over 8. That's because 2 is the change in the value. It went from $8 to $10. Minimum wage did. Okay, that's our income change, 8 to 10. So the change is 2 over the original 8 gives us 0.25. So we're going to end up with 20% that they gave you over the 25% that we just calculated, or 0.8. And because that number is positive, that is a normal good. So I just put down here the income elasticity of demand for taxis is 0.8, and the good is normal because income elasticity of demand is positive. Another example, if you want to go ahead and pause, read it, and try to work it out, and then come back to me here in a second. So it says when Sanjay's income increases by 20%, so they give you the income change, he decreases his pasta consumption from 4 boxes per week to 3 boxes. Calculate Sanjay's income elasticity of demand for pasta and state whether the good is normal or inferior. So in this case, same formula, but they give you the denominator, right? We know the 20% goes on bottom because that's percent change in income as it tells you. And it went up by 20%, but he decreased his pasta consumption. So that's important. We're going to have to consider that negative. The change here is 1, 4 to 3 over the original 4. So 0.25, we're going to end up with negative 25% on top over a positive 20% on bottom, or negative 1.25. And because it's negative, that tells us this is an inferior good. As soon as you know income elasticity is negative, that automatically tells us the good is inferior, as I wrote in the answer. Now, that's income elasticity. The other type today is cross-price elasticity. This is dealing with substitutes and complements, but as you'll see, the formula is still very, very similar. The cross-price elasticity of demand is equal to the percent change in the quantity demanded of good A divided by the percent change in the price of good B. Now, what you'll notice, as I said at the beginning of section 2.3, dollars always go in the denominator, right? Dollars go down in our fraction. So that's not only with income, but also with price, and also in this case with the price of good B as opposed to the quantity of good A. Now, really it doesn't matter good A, good B, who cares? What matters is that you have quantity change in one thing over the price change in another thing. And by doing that, we can compare the two goods and figure out if they're substitutes or complements. So it's the comparison of the price change in one good and the demand change in another good as a result. So substitutes work like this. As the price of X increases, the demand for Y increases. Cross-price elasticity then is positive. Complements work like this. As the price of X goes up, the demand for Y goes down. So in that case, cross-price elasticity is going to be negative, and that tells us that they're complements. So here's an example. If it'll go to the next slide for me. We'll give it 1 second. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give you a chance to work through a practice problem here and see if you can figure this out on your own. So it says, when the price of bananas increases by 10%, the demand for peanut butter decreases from 5 to 4 jars per consumer. Calculate the cross-price elasticity of demand for bananas and peanut butter and state whether the two goods are substitutes or complements. So we've got the percent change in the quantity demanded of one thing over the percent change in the price of another thing. So we're going to set this up. The quantity change is 5 to 4. So the change is 1 over the original 5. That gives us 0.2. On bottom, we know we already have our price change of bananas of 10%. Now, don't forget though, this is a negative on top because it's 5 to 4. So the change is actually -1. This is a negative percentage change. So we end up with -20 over 10. -2 is our answer. So the cross-price elasticity of demand is -2.0, and the two goods are complements because cross-price elasticity is negative. And if you think about it, it makes sense that they're complements, right? The price of one thing goes up, and the demand for the other goes down. So not only do we know that the law of demand says that as the price of bananas increases, quantity demanded for bananas will go down, but as people are demanding less bananas, they're demanding less peanut butter too. So we know that they're complements. Here's another example. When the price of good Y increases from $4 to $6, the demand for good X increases by 20%. All right, let's work through it. So our 20% goes on top because it says demand for good X increases by 20%. That's a positive 20%. On bottom, the change is 4 to 6. The change is 2 over the original 4. So we've got 0.5. That is a positive change. So we have a positive 20 over a positive 50. That gives us a positive 0.4. That's our cross-price elasticity of demand, and the two goods are substitutes because it's positive. So what's the significance of all this? It's one thing to know, like, all right, they're positive, they're substitutes. If it's negative, they're complements, normal, inferior, whatever. Well, you will have to just straight up calculate those and then state whether they're complements or substitutes, normal or inferior, just like we did here. But you're also going to have questions like this. let's say it gives you this information. Blocks and dolls are substitute goods. Then it tells you that the price of blocks increases. And it says, what impact will this have on the market for dolls? But it doesn't just say what impact. You're going to have to graph it in a free response question. So you have a basic equilibrium here, supply and demand. Okay, here's P1, that's our equilibrium price. Here's Q1, that's our equilibrium quantity. But you know that the price of blocks just increased. And you also know that the two are substitutes. So, with substitutes, as the price of one thing goes up, the demand for the other goes up. So on your graph, you would have to show this. We would have a rightward shift in demand for dolls because people are going to demand more dolls. And that's our x-axis, that's quantity. We are shifting to the right. They want more dolls because they need to replace the blocks that they're not going to buy because they went up in price. And so what does this do to the doll market? Now we have a new equilibrium, and that's a new price, P2, and that's a new quantity, Q2. That's one example of the impact of this stuff. Another example, let's say gas is a normal good. If an economic recession causes average income to decrease, how will it impact the market for gas? So, gas is a normal good, average income goes down. With a normal good, if average income goes down, if income goes down at all, that is a decrease in demand. So D2 is going to be over here to the left now because people demand less or move to the left on the x-axis. We have a new equilibrium right here in blue, and that's our new price, P2, and that's our new quantity, Q2. So that is the significance of the stuff that we're talking about today. You're not only going to have to calculate some of these things like this, but you're also going to have to show those changes on a graph potentially. So, with that said, we are officially done with elasticity.